and it's something that he has to adjust. Most of his issues at Temple was when he was throwing the ball and where he was throwing it. And those are things that he has to work on. Ball placement, that ball could have been a little bit lower, but just, giving a receiver a ball that he doesn't have to break stride. Giving a receiver a ball where the defender isn't 2 steps away from him, because that's when some of those violent contacts are made. And that's some of the things that Anthony has to work on. And, he's got to learn the offense. He's a quick learner. He's learned a bunch of different offenses. But they're just going through some team drills now. Again, everyone's staying up. Everyone's going full speed. And nowadays, you're all using up-tempo offense, so it takes care of itself.
Well, with Anthony Russo, you mentioned trying to learn the playbook here for Mel Tucker. He said, I literally have a whiteboard in my room, and every night I draw up some of the plays, maybe 8 to 10 times each, and so I go into practice the next day, and I know what to expect. Noah Kim now is the quarterback here for Michigan State. We've talked about Peyton Thorne, we've talked about Anthony Russo, and we were told that Noah Kim would actually be the 3rd quarterback out of the gates here today.
Yeah, Coach Tucker was very complimentary to Noah Kim in our meeting. This is absolutely our first look at it, but he certainly looks the part, but he must be doing some things well because there's 5 scholarship quarterbacks, and if he's the 3rd quarterback, and Russo's in his last year of eligibility, he's not far from playing. 6'2", 180, but I obviously haven't seen very much of him.
Well, he's very slight, as you gave his measurables here, but he has a very live arm, right, is what the coaching staff had told us as well. And so now it's Theo Day who's actually getting some reps and overshots his receiver there on that attempt. So this is a situation in this kind of setup where it looks like they're trying to rotate through as many quarterbacks as they can.
Yeah, and remember, Lisa, this will not happen all that much in the fall. The 3rd, 4th, 5th quarterback, is not going to get a lot of work. And, Peyton Thorne was talking this week about the week that he started. Here's Anthony Russo again. Again, this is just kind of a skeleton drill. But see, again, ball placement wasn't where it should have been on that last throw. But to get back to what Peyton was saying, when he was a starting quarterback for that Penn State game, it was so much different than when he was second team behind Lombardi. He got most of the reps. He was always asked the mental questions. There was so much more pressure on him. And so once the fall comes, the 3rd and 4th quarterbacks aren't going to really get any reps. You're lucky to get 2 quarterbacks ready for a game.
3 touchdowns, 325 passing yards. That was a record for a Michigan State quarterback in his first start, as well as a freshman single game record. And a lot of that coming in the first half for Peyton Thorne in that Penn State game.
Yeah, again, to me, what was most impressive in the Penn State game was his growth within the game. I mean, you could actually watch him run the same play again with much more efficiency, especially his pocket presence. Early in the game, he was feeling the rush too much. He was scrambling too soon. And by the 3rd quarter and as the game went on, he looked like he had spent most of his life here. I'm going to show you a tape here. I'm going to show you 3 plays, Lisa, that I'm going to try to explain what I'm saying. So I cut up 3 plays we're going to get to see here in a minute. I'll show you what I mean about how Peyton's pocket presence looks so much better as the game went on. Here it is here. So here's the first one. That's not.
That's a connection we just saw here between Thorne and actually his high school buddy, Cade McDonald, both of them from Naperville as well. But you were addressing the Penn State plays that you just wanted to show about the progression and the improvement here of Peyton Thorne in this game. All
right, first play. See how he scrambles? There was really nobody near him, okay? Again, because in practice he's not live. And then here, this is getting in the fight. Good decision. He felt pressure a little bit, and he probably – now here, he looks like he's been doing it all his life. And so those are 3 plays within the same game where I thought were very impressive because his growth.
Okay, when you talk about Michigan State anything, you talk about Tom Izzo, you talk about D'Antonio, and Darian Harris, I think, in the midst of those two. Darian, what do you got?
Yeah, I am right in the middle of two legends here, Coach Izzo and Coach D'Antonio. I'll start with Coach D. You called me last week and said you're making your rounds going to see your people. Stopped in Pitt to see Coach Dews, was able to get to Cincinnati, and then now here in East Lansing. What does it mean for you to be back in East Lansing?
You know, it's very important in our lives. You know, East Lansing has been a part of our life for so long, 19 years of my career. So it was important to get back and just be around a little bit and see the place and watch our players a little bit. So
we had our alumni golf outing yesterday, so you got out there and got to hit the ball around a little bit. How did it feel to see a lot of your former players that are now on and doing great things in life and get an opportunity to golf with them?
Yeah, it's always good to be back and to see the people that sort of set this place up, So a lot of guys from really the past, and then a lot of guys from my era, and even from Nick Saban's era and Bobby Williams' era. So it's good to see everybody, and I've always coached to watch people grow, and you see them growing now into men with families.
Absolutely. Over here to Coach Izzo. You've been at a couple of our practices this year because we know you love football. What have you seen from Coach Tucker in terms of his coaching style that you like so much?
Well, they're getting after it. They do a lot of hurry-up stuff from what I've seen. But as he said to me a couple times, half his team kids that'll be coming in now, both transfers and the portal kids and the freshmen that haven't come early. So I think we're seeing a skeleton of what we'll see later on in the summer.
We had a lot of players, well, not a lot, but some players that, had COVID issues last year. Elijah Collins came out in the media and said that really affected him and how he played. You went through something similar. Just for our viewers out there, how tough was it last year with COVID, some players getting COVID and trying to play an entire season like that?
Well, I got it in November, and I said I went to 11 days of quarantine, and I got a nice basement. That's where I lived. I hate my basement now. It was just an incredible, lonely experience, but we got hit with 4 or 5 players in the middle of January, right in the middle of the Big Ten season, and that was more difficult than I thought. I think everybody does it differently, meaning everybody responds differently, but it definitely is longer than the 17 days. It's 30 days before those guys are back in the shape they need to be in.
No doubt about it. Well, it's awesome to have you two gentlemen out here. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of practice.
That looked like an Italian-American senior citizen event.
Stop it.
No, really. It looked like somebody went to a senior citizen and did a couple interviews.
You could say that because you have great relationships, right, with Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio. 13 years for D'Antonio at Michigan State, 3 Big Ten titles. And I love the fact that Darian asked Tom Izzo about the practice, because if anyone's going to appreciate a practice, it's going to be Tom Izzo. So the marathon scoring drive is the setup here with Hayward taking the pass there, and then the completion. They kind of worked their way slowly down the field, which was the purpose of this 7-on-7 drill, and then finally the connection to McDonald, and you could hear some of the crowd kind of roaring with that as well. And again, we're getting closer to some of the team versus team aspects here for Mel Tucker. And there's another score that time by Jaden Reed, again wearing the number one here this year. You got that number memorized now, don't you?
No doubt.
Take a look at that as well here. And again, Big Ten officials are roaming the field here to try to keep everything in check for these guys. That was a nice connection. What'd you think of that?
That's one of the primary routes they throw to Reed. It's a seam route. It's usually off of play action. Nowadays, with all the support from the free safety in the run game, if you can beat the corner, there's usually nobody in the middle, and that's a coverage that Reed can take advantage of every time.
We see Matt Allen kind of lining up at the center spot, 64 here. And this is Peyton Thorne at quarterback as well. Matt Allen, Nick Samac will be doing battle at the center spot here this year.
Lisa, this looks like 1s against 2s, which is how you usually practice. You'll go 1s on 1s and 2s on 2s at times. Okay, again, if this is scrimmage, I'm guessing it is, because they took him to the ground. So this is as close to the spring game as we're going to get today. So this is every rep of this is valuable. I mean, this is as close to getting to a game as you can. The coaches will watch the tape. The players will watch the tape. This is really finding out a player that can take the individual group work and bring it to a game.
And Thorne this time getting pressured. Simeon Barrow was the one who was providing the pressure there on the backside. He's a player who opted out of last season.
Yeah, you've got to protect the quarterback, obviously. And again, both of these lines are very deep. There's some guys that are hurt in the offensive line for the scrimmage. But I think most of the defensive line is healthy. Here's Thorne again.
Yeah, no Luke Campbell. You won't see Blake Buter. And we were told that A.J. Arcuri won't be on the field here today. Jerry DiNardo, Lisa Byington, Darian Harris on the field for us as well. This is not your traditional kind of spring game that we're used to seeing in the D'Antonio era. Mel Tucker showing us a little bit of the spring practice if you're just joining us. Elijah Collins that time.
Lisa, it's not that uncommon that coaches don't have full spring games any longer, especially someone like Mel Tucker that's just building a program. But nowadays, with 85 scholarships, with the portal, with transfers, it's hard to have enough to have a full-out scrimmage, but particularly hard for someone in the second year of his program and the first spring practice he's had. Here's Anthony Russo. I think they're still with the one offense. If you're going to decide on a quarterback, you're going to play them both with the one offense. You can't play one with the ones and ones with the twos. It's well done, but see, it was a little behind him. Again, it's where on the body you throw it and when you throw it. You want to throw it so that the defender isn't 2 steps away from the receiver, and you want to put it on the receiver where he doesn't have to break stride. See how Leda had to lean back a little bit. He should have caught that one. Mm-hmm. That's a drop, but the ball could have been placed better. That's something that Anthony really has to work on.
And so that's something that when you watch tape of him at Temple, that you saw him with that too. I mean, you mentioned the 32 interceptions that he threw at Temple. And that was if there was a correction to be made, that was maybe high on the list for you?
Right. The interceptions, I think Anthony believes that he waited too long and threw the ball late. He was trying to make something happen. I think Temple won 1 game last year, so they were behind in a lot of games. So a quarterback is trying to make things happen. So that's part of the reason. What bothered me more was the ball placement more than the interception. And that was perfect ball placement right there. So the interceptions, I could see how a quarterback would be in that position. Ball placement, I think that's something that you can work on.
Parks Gissinger, another guy, another tight end that will be used a little bit more maybe this year. Wasn't available last year, banged up a little bit according to Mel Tucker. He's been back the last few days. 2019, he played in 4 games and 11 snaps as a tight end.
Tight ends nowadays aren't, the big tight ends on the line of scrimmage that block. A lot of them can play in the slot. So they're more receivers now than they were a generation ago when people were in the I formation. There's Connor Haywood, and again, we haven't given him enough credit. I mean, he started for 6 games. He's always there. He's very dependable. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball, and he can pass protect.
Well, he 200 yards on the ground, just second to Jordan Simmons last year. A 3-year letter winner, 36 career games, so certainly brings some experience. One of those Georgia guys, and if you know his story, obviously entered his name into the transfer portal when D'Antonio retired, and then brought back by Mel Tucker. He's got those Georgia ties, so he's close to some of those Georgia kids here on this team. Connor Hayward getting some work there in the backfield here for Michigan State as we wrap up this period here for the Spartans. We will continue to show you Mel Tucker's Michigan State spring football practice. Again, it's the 15th and final practice here of this spring season.
Hayward's still in there. You got Russo, inside read. That's a read play. There'll be a time when the quarterback might keep that ball, but again, they're not going to run the quarterback a lot, but they're going to run it maybe once or twice a quarter to keep the defense honest.
Okay, so we will take a quick timeout and resume kind of the final few periods here at Michigan State spring football practice. Michigan State football practice. And again, Anthony Russo in charge, and a nice grab there, like a fingertip grab as well. But a couple of touchdowns that we've seen, one each from Peyton Thorne and Anthony Russo. This one from Thorne.
Play action pass. perfectly placed. Receiver never broke stride, and this is the one we talked about already. Anthony Russo, perfect pass. So those are 2 deep balls off of play action. You've got to be able to throw those passes to win football games nowadays.
And so if we are following our script here that Mel Tucker gave us to follow along here, lofting that one up, I believe that we are now at watching the 3rd down offense going against the defense, and there's 12 reps for the 1s and the 2s.
Okay, so is this 3rd and long? Is that what we're looking at, Lisa? Did you say? Yeah.
I believe that's the script here.
Yeah.
That we're going at.
The reason I bring that up, offensively, it's maybe 35% you're going to be successful. So as we watch this, most of these are going to be incompletions, or they'll be complete but not for long enough yardage. So, when you're putting together a game plan, there's a quality control. For instance, 1st and 10 happens 24 times a game. If you can
look at that hit.
If you gain 4 yards or more on that 1st down, then you have a better chance of winning. So 3rd and long, the coaches probably quality control in this, so they'll be able to tell either the offense or defense who won this drill by the percentage of conversions.
That was Cal Halliday, by the way. They're excited about him making that hit defensively here for the white team.
Jalen Hunt just would have sacked the quarterback if it was a live drill. He did a spin move. He's 310. He looked like he was 170 on that spin move. I mean, he is a really good athlete, and that was a really good pass rush. And I think we heard Darian say he's going to be one of the better defensive tackles that have played at Michigan State. That's a pretty high compliment from Darian.
He's got to live up to that 99, too, is what Darian was saying as well. This time it's Noah Kim here at quarterback. So, again, all 3 quarterbacks getting some work here in this drill.
Tough conditions to be throwing the ball a lot like they're trying. But, this is what they wanted to do in today's practice, and you're going to have to do it sometime in a wet game, but not ideal conditions for either offense or defense.
So some of the 2s on the offensive side getting some reps. Cole DeMarso on the defensive side.
DeMarso, now he Coach Tucker said he's had a good spring. He mentioned him on our call. Him and Halliday, which we didn't really talk that much about when we were talking to linebackers. Noah Harvey and Chase Klein looks like to be the starters. Halliday and DeMarzo look like the next 2 in. And then you add the 4 newcomers, 3 of them transfers, 1 of them an incoming freshman. And again, you take a transfer to play right away. It doesn't, like Mel Tucker says, that we don't give you the first string position, but your expectations, if we're going to take a transfer, they're going to be part of the plan. It's a little different than recruiting a high school player. And after this play, we can talk a little bit about their recruiting setup, Lisa.
Play action that time, and dropping it into the breadbasket to Stewart once again. It's Kim and Stewart. They like that connection together.
Yeah, and that obviously is one of the things that the offensive coaches want to do is throw the ball deep. Again, this is play action. Sometimes you throw play action, even if it's 3rd and long. People say, why would you play action? They know it's not going to be a run, but the protection's better. That's why you do it. So you just go through the perfunctory fake because the protection is better.
And again, against the 1 defense, just to put a period on that, Emmanuel Flowers, Angelo Gross are the 2 in the secondary trying to chase down that pass play.
And both those guys right now, I believe, will be out there a bunch unless things change in the fall.
We still have a 2-minute drill coming up to show you. And again, this is Mel Tucker kind of working through different offensive scenarios. 3rd down play is the emphasis of this period during this practice.
I want to get back to the recruiting structure, Lisa, after this play.
Getting flushed out of the pocket again. It's Barrow chasing. He's done that a couple of times. Got some penetration.
Barrow's one of the young guys that all the coaches have spoken about. So when we talk about the transfers, by way of example, you bring 10 people in at linebacker and secondary, 3 in the secondary, and 3 in linebacker. So that's 6 new people. So because Coach Tucker's got an NFL background, his recruiting structure is he has the portal transfer department and the high school department, which 3 or 4 years ago, without the portal, would have been unheard of. Nobody. First of all, transfers used to be a bad word in college football, right? You were a quitter, you were this, you were that. Now it's about opportunity. It's about if it was your child and that child was unhappy and could be happier somewhere else, they weren't necessarily a quitter. They were a 5-star that got stuck behind 2 other 5 stars. Doesn't mean they're a bad player. They want to go somewhere to play. So he has structured his recruiting where someone's in charge of transfers and someone's in charge of high school.
It was an interesting piece of the conversation that he had with us because he's spent so many years in the NFL. He said he has taken his staff and sort of modeled it around what you would see with the NFL, where you kind of have a couple of different departments. You've got some pro scouts kind of sort of monitoring maybe the free agency world, and then you've got another crop of staff that's looking at the college side, evaluating draft prospects and that area. So you talk about transfer portal and junior college transfers as well, also kind of went into the transfer portal side. And then you got the high school side.
With all the talk about transfers and NIL, the coaches that adjust the best will do the best. I mean, it's always been an adjustable job, right? We had 105 scholarships. We went to 95. Oh, the game will never survive. Then we go to 85 scholarships. Oh, the game will never survive. Now we have transfers without penalty. Oh, the game will never survive. The game will always survive. The coaches that adjust the best will survive the best.
Hamp Fay is your new quarterback. It's our first time looking at number 5. There at the QB spot. 6'5", 215. He's a freshman out of Texas. He was an early enrollee in January. And when he got to campus, he's a 3-star prospect.
He's getting some advice from Anthony Russo and Jay Johnson, their offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. Again, these are tough conditions really to look sharp on either side of the ball. But it's also an opportunity. You'll see coaches in the fall, Lisa, that if it's never rained, they'll bring buckets of water out there and the balls will be dunked. We were at Iowa on the bus tour a couple of years back. They have this beautiful brand new facility. It was raining like crazy. We stayed outside the whole time. I said to Kirk Ferentz, boy, I wish you guys could build an indoor facility. But it was his rain practice. If he didn't have it, and if a coach doesn't have a rain practice, they're going to bring buckets of water out of there.
I think they realized Jerry DiNardo was going to be in town, and they said, let's all stay outside and just tell him it's our rain practice.
Honestly, Howard and I did go outside. Refson was inside, wrapped up.
Well, you see the fans in attendance. I mentioned 6,000 digital tickets free were handed out. And this is the first sort of general admission football event. You go back to 2019 when they had a home game against Maryland. And if you remember in the 2020 season, at least in the state of Michigan, only the player guests were allowed into the home games when they played at Spartan Stadium. So even with rain, wind, shine, whatever, you can see some of these fans are just happy to be inside to watch football again.
Yeah, and it's good for the players. It's been a tough year for everybody. Tyler Hunt, remember, a street walker.
I love that description.
It was his description, but it's pretty good. I didn't even know who he was.
Well, Peyton Thorne connecting with Tyler Hunt on that last play. Let's see what they can do here. And that's Beasley there with the touch. Coach Beasley, the super senior, getting it done.
Yeah, he is a steady influence on that defense. I mean, him and Ponishuk at the other end. I mean, they're veteran guys, and they will be an important part of their season.
I thought Ron Burton, you had a conversation with him. He's talking about Beasley and, obviously with some of the defensive ends who are returning. He talked about his guys developing that second move that's going to allow them to gain more sacks, the ability to carry it over from spring ball to fall ball. Explain what he means about his defensive line trying to make that second move to be more effective this year.
Okay, so let's say a defensive lineman's first move is a speed rush. So I'm a defensive end. I'm lined just outside the offensive tackle, and I constantly, on the snap, on a pass, I rush outside. So if you're...
That's picked off.
Dowell.
Michael Dowell.
Wow. That's the first pick we've seen today.
With the INT.
Well done. Yeah, I'm not sure Hunt and Peyton were on the same page. Yeah.
And so chalk one up for the defense.
So to get back to the second move, Lisa, so you're playing defensive end, and I'm going against the offensive right tackle. And on a pass, I always rush to your right shoulder. That's my first move, the speed rush. The second move might be I start to rush outside, and I come back inside. So that's what he means by it can't always be the same move, right? You have to have a complementary. You can have a primary move and a secondary move because the offensive lineman, by way of example, doesn't know when you're going to go to the second move. So the offensive lineman has to protect against the first move by percentages. And so that's what he's trying to do, get his defensive lineman to have a little bigger repertoire of pass rushes.
Okay, so now it's Anthony Russo's turn.
Well
that
done.
Pass connect.
Little low, right? Little low, but he got it out of his hands quicker than he does at times.
That's Sebastian Brown, a freshman receiver out of Detroit Cass Tech, by the way. So moving down the field here awfully quickly.
A lot of great plays coming out of Cass Tech.
That's Parks Gissinger, and this is a 2-minute situation where they're trying to move it down the field to try to get in field goal position. That's the purpose of this period.
Right, so you're teaching the players, make your decisions based on a field goal. So we don't need 6. They clock it.
Russo stops the clock.
They even have to practice stopping the clock for Russo.
11 seconds remaining.
And 11 seconds remaining here. You hear the public address announcer trying to explain everything to the crowd that's in person there at Spartan Stadium. Look at Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator.
I was listening to a coach the other day talk about signals with the transfer portal. You have to change the signals every year.
That's a great point.
I know. I never thought it. It was interesting to hear the coach say that.
And for Russo, it's learning those signals for the first time this year.
Yeah. He's learned enough offenses. He probably can learn enough
You mentioned
signals.
it. 3 different head coaches, 3 different offensive coordinators out of Temple.
Crazy.
Collins was in the backfield there for Russo. A high pass, and it was poked away.
Yeah, he mentioned this. See, he was opened up. His hips were almost parallel to the line of scrimmage when he threw it. And he mentioned this the other day coming out of, I think, the second scrimmage. He said he wasn't opening up enough when he was throwing to his left, so he may have over-adjusted that. But, he's broken down his own throwing motion, I'm sure, with the help of Coach Johnson.
And that was Kendall Brooks who broke up that play, by the way. One of the transfers, one of the mid-season transfers, if you will, out of a Division II school, North Greenville University. Here's a deep attempt for Coughlin, and it is wide right.
And the kick is no good.
Coughlin's career long, a 51-yarder that he had against Michigan last year.
That was a big one. Yeah, they're probably going to change groups. It looks like a group change here, maybe. Oh, it is. Coach Tucker saying goodbye to the officials.
Okay, so practice is officially over. Now we get to see some sprints. This is your favorite part, right, Jerry?
Well, I was going to see if I wanted to see where the managers and the trainers were.
If Darian was going to take part in the sprints?
I'll say this, Lisa. If the managers and trainers would take part in conditioning, why wouldn't Darian?
I think that's a very valid point. Why wouldn't the director of player engagement, who's a former captain,
right,
linebacker?
I don't want to embarrass these guys out here. That's all that
is. Good answer, Darian.
Lying in the weeds, Darian.
Darian, I know that there's a new strength coach that we're looking at, too, that has been so important for this team, especially in the spring. Jason Novak.
Novak's been awesome, and again, and what he's brought from IMG Academy, from his years in the NFL, that's where everything's moving nowadays, even in college sports, is to the professional model. No better to do that than Coach Novak. He's got the NFL pedigree from his father coaching with the Titans, and this right here, 10 perfect 10s to end practice. It's all about conditioning. It's all about being in shape.
And what goes into perfect, Darian, when you say 10 perfect 10s? What are you evaluating?
Basically, if the object is to run 10 yards, you better run 15.
Well done.
I'll tell you one thing. If Coach Tucker's around, your hand better be behind that line, too. He mentioned that the other day when he was talking about practice.
He talked about discipline, behind the cones, behind the line, everything.
Socially distance.
All right. So Darian's not going to take part in some of the sprints, but he will take part in some interviews that we hope to have after this quick timeout. We'll wrap things up after this from East Lansing. Was the first team offense against the second team defense. So now we switch it a little bit. This is the quote unquote second team offense against the first team defense.
Okay, so let's watch a little bit of the defense, right? Most people watch the game through the eyes of the quarterback and the offense. Let's take a look and see some of the defensive guys, because we talked about it before the game. And again, a lot of depth up front, and yet thin in the back end and at linebacker. But there were 2 linebacker systems, so that's going to help them in depth when they get 4 new linebackers this coming fall. There's the nickel back at the top of the screen. That's the 3rd linebacker in normal defense. So what you'll see is 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers behind the line of scrimmage, and then 2 alley players, Lisa. So outside either the tight end or the offensive tackle in that inverted position, and then a 3 deep shell behind them with a free safety in the middle. Here's a good look at it. So that nickel's number 27 right there. He's the inverted player on the weak side of that. That's actually a linebacker. That's Halliday, but that's where the nickel would ordinarily line up.
The officials throwing the flags here. They need to be in season form here.
Flags are always interesting in spring games. It keeps good relationship between the coaches and the officials.
Keeps some relationship, that's for sure.
I mean, you get to practice the relationship. If it's good, you make it better. If it's bad, you make it worse.
Jeff Cervinsky wearing the white hat here today in his relationship with Mel Tucker.
Which I'm sure is good. It's new.
Now, do we make anything? I know we were told, Mel Tucker told us that each quarterback would get even reps. Do we make anything with Peyton Thorne kind of running the 2 offense here in this period? No,
I don't think so. Because you have to play them both with the 1s and both with the 2s. I mean, to make it even. And if one guy's leading the competition, you want to see him with the 2s. You want to see him under some pressure. And I'll say this: I've heard Coach Tucker say that it's probably going to be after the first scrimmage in the fall or the second scrimmage in the fall before he makes a decision. I think at the end of today, you have to know who you would start tomorrow. I don't think you want to tell anybody. I think you want to keep it in the safe, in the corner office, and not show your hand. But you have to know, if you were playing tomorrow, who the best quarterback is. It can change. But when I've been in this situation, I was in this situation once with 3 quarterbacks. I had them rated 1, 2, and 3 after spring, but I never told anybody. I didn't want to influence the coaches or anybody else. So we won't know until the first or second scrimmage in the fall.
As we talked about, and the fact that so many changing pieces and faces and new players even coming in the summer, that this spring season for Mel Tucker is unlike what you had been accustomed to, where you basically have your 2 deep after the spring season is complete.
Right. The old thinking was come out of spring with 2 deep and don't think that anyone's going to help you in the fall. Then if a freshman comes in and helps you, you're just better, right? But nowadays, with the portal, with transfer without penalty, that's a little bit of an unrealistic approach. So I think you have to do it by position. And by way of example, I think the offensive and defensive lines, their depth could be set after today's game. Wide receivers and running backs, it can be set. It could change a little bit, But linebackers and secondary at Michigan State's not going to be decided until the first and second scrimmage in the fall.
That, again, is Noah Kim that you're watching at quarterback once again.
As Cam Allen, they're very excited about Cam Allen at tight end. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of ability. Again, body type, you look at him, he looks like a tight end that can line up on the line of scrimmage and run block. He looks like he can be an H-back. He looks like he could be a slot. There he is right there, 82. So they have been very positive about Cam Allen.
He was an early enrollee as well. He actually never met the coaches until January.
Unbelievable, right?
I know. They started recruiting him last March, and we all know what happened last March.
But it was equal for everybody, right? I mean, they weren't visiting any campuses.
How about that grab? Ian Stewart going up and climbing the ladder and catching that one. He actually has 0 catches in his career. I know he would wish that one would count. Our Big Ten standout, presented by Auto Owners Insurance. They call him a big player. He moved over to tight end last year, then moved back to wide receiver. And the big kid, as they call him, was big on this play.
That is well done. Well done and well timed. He has vision on the ball and just jumps perfectly. This is what a lot of people call 50-50 ball, although this is not exactly a 50-50 ball. But you know what a 50-50 ball used to be, Lisa?
What's that?
A bad pass. And now, but the game has changed, and now that works, right? I mean, that is part of college football. And the NFL. Throw a ball up there and let 2 people fight it. You used to have to be 2 yards open before anybody would throw you the ball. This is a lot more fun, a lot more exciting this way.
Well, Stewart played in 4 games on special teams, 21 plays total in 2020. He got some action against Northwestern, Michigan, Iowa, and Indiana, and so far making a highlight catch here in the final spring practice for Michigan State.
Well done. I mean, young guy has an opportunity, takes advantage of it. It's always a good thing. Here's Kim again.
And against the one defense, too, by the way.
Right, the old debate when you're the coaches, the offense has a really good day. Why should I be excited? Our defense isn't very good. So, it's never good for the head coach if one side has a good day. It's red zone offense. Not much running the ball today.
Well, got a piece of it, Michael Dowell.
Dowell's played a lot of football for Michigan State. He is a good player. That is a good play right there.
He's got good pedigree. Younger brother of former twins Andrew and David, of course. Andrew a linebacker, and David, of course, a starting safety as well. Look at this, Matt Conklin. Going to get some action. Didn't I promise you, Jerry, a field goal here at the spring practice?
You did, Lisa, but you've made so many promises down through the years, and you're like 50%. So it's hard to get excited when you make a promise.
Well, Matt Conklin is better than 50%. His accuracy is about 75% for his career. He's made 64 of those officially. And that one through the uprights as well. We noticed, look at that hair, the red hair that's sticking out underneath his helmet. He's got a beard. We were watching him warm up. He's got a beard and much longer hair than what we're used to seeing Matt Conklin look like.
Oh!
You like this, the schedule this fall. Look at that first game, the crossover game against Northwestern. You like that setup going Big Ten against Big Ten out of the gates?
I do. I love it. And it's only been going on for 3 or 4 years. I forget when it started, but other conferences around the country, this was what they were doing. And what I love about early conference games is if you're not a Big Ten fan and you're not in the footprint, you'll tune into that game as opposed to Northwestern playing, say, a non-conference game that doesn't spark a lot of interest. Northwestern, Michigan State. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald's been to the championship game 2 of the last 3 years. Am I right? I mean, he's a big name. That's a big-time program. Mel Tucker's taken over Michigan State. That has been in the college football playoffs not too long ago. So I think playing one of those early conference games is great for the Big Ten, and I hope we continue doing it. We saw Youngstown State up there, the first non-conference game.
Yes, and there's a Trussell connection to Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker.
Mark D'Antonio took the defensive coordinator job at Ohio State for Tress. And he asked Mark, who do you want to coach the secondary? And Mark said, I want Mel Tucker. So Mel Tucker went and worked. So Mel Tucker's going to go against Jim Tressel, but Tressel's not going to be coaching the team. He's the president of the university.
Yeah, isn't that something? He's been in that position for several years now, but I thought that was an interesting non-conference opponent, by the way. Youngstown State, an FCS opponent. They've only played them twice in the history. The last time was back in 2013. Western Kentucky is another non-conference opponent. That'll be the first meeting between those two programs, and then they'll travel to Miami, which is interesting. They've never beaten a Miami program. They've lost all 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, here's Russo. That's perfect, right? That's ball placement. Reed is open. That was really well done. That's probably the best pass I've seen Anthony Russo throw. That was really well done.
What was different about that pass?
Ball placement. I mean, Jaden didn't have to turn. He didn't have to break stride. It was perfectly thrown. And, Lisa, it was thrown at the right time. So it's not only ball on body placement, but it's the right time so the defender is not in your face as soon as you catch it, or in that case, the defender can't tip the ball. So that was very well done.
And Conklin, they're giving him an extra point chance.
You told me there was no kicking.
Well, no, I told you there would be kicking, actually.
I was trying to turn it around.
Right, you didn't listen to me, is what it came down to.
Well, you were talking a long time, I think, when I stopped listening.
So Mel Tucker trying to eye these guys for the last time in this 15th and final spring practice. And they will move on to their recruiting hats, the recruiting minds. Of course, June now opening up for the NCAA and Division I in terms of the recruiting world as well. And they will turn their thoughts and their planning, they already have, quite frankly, to some camps. And now finally bringing some prospects in on campus.
Their last 4 recruiting classes, the last 2 have been ranked in the 40s nationally and 10th in the conference. The 2 prior to that, which not all those people are still on the team, were in the 30s and were ranked 7th. Mel Tucker's going to have more of here's Collins, more of a national recruiting base than Mark D'Antonio. Mark D'Antonio wanted to be in a pretty tight radius. He wanted the players to come to their camp, come to their games, and get to know them a little bit. Mel has roots down south, and it will give Michigan State a little bigger recruiting base. And if you remember, Duffy Daugherty was one of the first Michigan State coaches that integrated the Big Ten by recruiting the South. And so Michigan State has a deep history recruiting the South.
Yeah, well, one big recruit that came in and performed is Plaxico Burress, who right now is standing by with Darian Harris on the field.
A lot of familiar faces that came back to East Lansing for this weekend, standing by with Super Bowl champion and, of course, Spartan dog Plaxico Burress. Great to see you, man. What does it mean for you to be back in East Lansing?
Oh, man, it's always a beautiful thing to come back. Obviously, it's been a long time since, I played here. I left in 1999, but it's always refreshing to come back. And this is my first spring game since 1998 that I played, and because when the spring game was going on, I was always in many camps and playing, but it's always good to be back.
A lot of talented receivers now on the team. Jaden Reed, Jalen Naylor. What are you looking forward to seeing out of the receiving corps this year? Of course, led by the great Courtney Hawkins.
I want to see some touchdowns. Some explosive plays. We got a lot of young talent at the position. I'm excited as well as everybody else. Coach Tuck and Hawk. I played with Courtney Hawkins in Pittsburgh back in 2000. So he's a great coach. He's a great mind, and he's going to teach them the proper techniques. And he definitely has the knowledge to pass down to them so they can have success at the position. And I'm expecting for them to come out and play well and lead this offense.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you in East Lansing. Appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you for your time. That's certainly one of the Spartan greats, but I love that answer. He wants to see touchdowns as any good receiver, right? And throw it to him as well, and some of those receivers as well.
I was surprised Darian didn't say, I'm a linebacker. I don't want to see any touchdowns, but he was being gracious to our guest.
Well, here we see Peyton Thorne now back in at quarterback.
Yeah, that last pass, the receiver slipped. Mel Tucker said, and Darian asked him about the weather, you play different in the rain. Your feet have to be underneath you. The advantage should be to the offense, the thinking being that the offensive player knows where he's going, the defensive player is reacting off the offensive player's movements. So at the last minute, a defensive player can slip a lot easier than an offensive player. But the game definitely slows down in this kind of weather. Otherwise, you're going to be slipping.
Well, Sam Edwards getting good penetration on that for a tackle for loss there for the White defense. We'll have more to come from the spring football practice after this.